Okay.
Okay.
All right. Before we get into the Gosho, Hero of the World, I just wanted to emphasize something one more time, as I do often. And it's about faith. We talk about faith a lot. We're going to talk about faith in this Gosho as well. The Daishonin refers to faith continuously within the Gosho. Okay? But why is, I just want to make sure everybody understands, why is faith necessary and important? There's a specific reason. It's not because just belief has so much power. This isn't Christianity. This isn't like an obligation to bow down to something more powerful than yourself. Why is faith absolutely essential for the attainment of Buddhahood, for the development of your wisdom? Actual Ichinen Sensen, yeah. The only way you achieve actual Ichinen Sensen is through faith. But why is faith in that circumstance? Why is it faith that's required to achieve actual Ichinen Sensen? Does everybody understand?
There is no other way.
There is no other way, but moreover, what the Buddha, what Shakyamuni taught in the Lotus Sutra is that you don't have the wisdom to perceive the 10th world. Okay? So, in the absence of that wisdom, as a deluded common mortal, you substitute faith. You substitute faith for wisdom. This is a key tenet of the Buddhism of the Sowing. All right? So understand, whenever he's talking about faith, he's not asking you just to arbitrarily believe.
Yeah.
He's asking you to suspend your disbelief so that the truth can be revealed to you. In other words, believe what I'm saying so that that experience will lead you to the wisdom of the reality of what I'm teaching you. So, going to the dictionary, substituting faith for wisdom, it's Ichin Daiye. The principle that faith is the true cause for gaining supreme wisdom, and faith alone leads to enlightenment. In general, Buddhism describes supreme wisdom as the cause for enlightenment. That's Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, right? According to the Lotus Sutra, however, even Shariputra, who is revered as the foremost in wisdom, could attain enlightenment only through faith, not through wisdom. The simile and parable, 3rd chapter of the sutra states, even you, Shariputra, in the case of the sutra, were able to gain entrance through faith alone. How much more so, then, the other voice hearers? Those other voice hearers, it is because they have faith in the Buddha's words that they can comply with this sutra, not because of any wisdom of their own. In Great Concentration and Insight, Tiantai says, Buddhism is like an ocean that one can only enter through faith. In his 1277 treatise on the 4 stages of faith and the 5 stages of practice, Nichiren states, because our wisdom is inadequate, he, Shakyamuni Buddha, teaches us to substitute faith for wisdom, making this single word faith the foundation. Okay? Right, so basically, does everybody know who Prince Shotoku? I'm going to go through a few things before we get into the Gosho itself. Do you know historically what the significance of Prince Shotoku is? If I say Prince Shotoku of Japan. Okay, he was the first Buddhist emperor of Japan. He's the one that actually established the first object of devotion of Shakyamuni that was fabricated or made in Japan. All right? So Shotoku, also known as Prince Jogyu, the second son of Japan's 31st Emperor Yomei and the region under the reign of Empress Suiko, he carried out numerous reforms and governed wisely in both domestic and international affairs. I won't get into it more than that, other than to understand that his significance as far as the Daishonin is concerned is that the Shotoku is the one that began Buddhism, was the first to embrace Buddhism as a ruler, which then made it okay for everybody else to do in Japan. All right, so he's also in this Gosho. I'm going to talk about a couple other guys, and I'll get to that as we go along. But if you look up Hero of the World, the title, this is an honorific title of a Buddha, okay? And what it basically expresses is the Hero of the World is a true Buddha. All right, so If you look it up, you don't find hero of the world, you find world hero. Also, hero of the world or supreme leader of the world, another name or honorific title of a Buddha, a reference to a Buddha's heroism in conquering all people's earthly desires and sufferings and leading them to enlightenment with supreme wisdom and deep compassion. All right, so that's as much as I'll get into as a preamble to what we're about to start reading. Now, what we normally do when we read any of these lectures is we read the whole Gosho instead of just the excerpts. So I'm going to go to page 835 in volume 1. Page 835, volume 1. Hero of the World's the Gosho. Who knows who this Gosho was written to? Okay, and what was the circumstance around this letter? Do you know? Because there's a whole series of Goshos. I've told you there's a whole embankments of faith and do not begrudge your fief. There's like 4 or 5 Goshos that are part of this circumstance around Shijo Kingo. And our friend Samibo is part of it. I'll get into Samibo in a minute to remind you who Samibo is. Where is he? There's Shobo and then Samibo must be here somewhere. I got it here. Samibo. At any rate, I'll get into it in a second. Let me go ahead and start. So, he says, Hero of the World, page 835. Starting the Gosho itself from page 835 of lecture or the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, volume 1. Okay, part of this is going to sound a little dry, and at the beginning, what he's trying to do to encourage Shijo Kingo in the circumstance that he's in is he's going to go into a little bit of the historical basis of Japan. All right, so you're going to get a little bit of a history of Japan here. It's important for you to not be a scholar of Japanese history, but for you to at least understand the eras and the players, because the Daishonin refers to them so often in the Gosho. It's important that you be able to read that. And you got Samibo for me? Mm-hmm. Thank you, dear. Okay, we're going to get to Samibo in a minute, primarily because he's the one that this is the only entry in the dictionary that fully spells out the Kuwagayatsu debate, which is this whole premise of this whole letter is about. Okay, so again, Samibo had gone to a debate. If you remember, do you guys all remember Samibo, right? He was the very learned one that, then he was talking, he was all, let me read you Samibo. You'll remember who Samibo was. Samibo, also known as Samibo Nichigyo, one of Nichiren's earliest disciples, a native Shimosa province in Japan. He received a Buddhist education at Mount Hei and was highly esteemed among Nichiren's followers for his learning and debating skills. These were evident in his victory over Ryuzobo, a priest of the Tendai school, in the Kuwagayatsu debate of 1277, which started this whole thing between Lord Emma and Shijo Kingo. Lord Emma was Shijo Kingo's lord, right? He worked for him. He tended to be, Samibo, continuing, he tended to be arrogant about his knowledge and desirous of social recognition and status. However, Nichiren found it necessary to admonish him about this on several occasions, such as when he appeared excessively proud of having preached before the court aristocracy in Kyoto. During the Atsuhara persecution, he renounced his belief in Nichiren's teachings and turned against Nichiren and his supporters. In several letters, Nichiren refers to Samibo's untimely and tragic death, though details of this are unknown. So, that was Samibo. Samibo had this debate. He beat the Tendai priest, all right? There were a bunch of other warriors that attended the debate. They created a lie about Shijo Kingo, knowing that he was a disciple of Nichiren, and told Shijo Kingo's lord, Lord Emma, that Shijo Kingo had gone in there and like a badass been very disruptive and thrown tables around and stuff like that. And Emma had said that's completely not cool, and you need to renounce your faith in this kind of teaching if it leads you to these kinds of actions. Of course, Shijo Kingo had never done anything like that. Lord Emma then told Shijo Kingo, if you don't write a petition to renounce your faith, I'm going to confiscate your lands. Okay? Shijo Kingo then wrote to the Daishonin to say, I'm in this mess, but don't worry, I'm not going to give up my faith. I'm not going to give up my following of you. All right, and the Daishonin continued to worry because that was very difficult circumstance to face and not back down from. As a matter of fact, that's what affected Semibo. That's what affected Shobo. All these people were not willing to go against the ruling power. Okay? They were not willing to stand up against the ruling power, and they capitulated when pressure was put on them. Either change your faith, modify your faith, which the Daishonin says any modification, any going against my teaching is completely wrong. You don't have that latitude. So now I'm going to get into the Gosho. You ready? Page 835. You know what's going on. Shijo Kingo has just written to the Daishonin, and the Daishonin is writing back to him, very happy to hear from him. I start with the background, on page 846. The background. Pardon me, not 846. The background is on page 840. All right, background. Around the third year of Kinji, 1277, when this letter was written, Shijo Kingo was in great personal danger, having incurred the wrath of his lord, Emma, okay, by, again, having this false story told about him. Lord Emma's antagonism towards Shijo Kingo dated back to the Kuwagayatsu debate with Semibo, okay, which took place in the 6th month of 1277. Taking advantage of their discord, Kingo's colleagues were watching for a chance to do away with him. In response to Shijo Kingo's report on the plight in which he was placed, Nichiren Daishonin wrote a petition to Lord Emma on Kingo's behalf, explaining what had happened at the Kuwagayatsu debate and the relative superiority of Buddhist teachings. In the present letter, the Daishonin clarifies the difference between Buddhism and government. Reward and punishments are a means that a government employs to pursue its goals, while there is no such conscious manipulation in the world of Buddhism. Buddhism, based on an absolute law, means victory or defeat, and in other words, happiness or unhappiness, depending on whether one supports it or opposes it. In the last part of the letter, the Daishonin strongly advises Kingo to take great care to avoid being attacked by his enemies. So do you understand what he's basically saying there? What is the thing that he just qualified in those last 3 sentences? He says, reward and punishment are a means that a government employs to pursue its goals. In other words, reward and punishment. How did Lord Emma get to be a lord? He supports the emperor. Okay, he puts all of his well-being on the line anytime the emperor is attacked. Okay, what's Kingo get out of it as a warrior? Emma has his own also key soldiers, key warriors that they're given estates. They have their own little crew. They have their own little armies. All those little armies accumulate into a big army to Lord Emma. Lord Emma's power is what makes him important to the emperor. Okay, so he says, reward and punishment are means that a government employs to pursue its goals. So in other words, you either get rewarded or you get punished for either obeying or disobeying the secular leadership. Same thing right now, where we live right now. You break the law, you go against the government, you'll probably find yourself in some sort of legal problems. Okay, you go along, you support it, you get rewarded or taken care of. Do you understand? So he's saying, though, Buddhism, however, is not doing that. All right, Buddhism has not got a God that's trying to control you through reward and punishment. This is strictly personal, vertical causality. Understand, it's completely different than the kind of mechanism. What's behind me? One of my kids? Okay. Okay. So the bottom line is that's what he's trying to explain. He's trying to explain the basis of victory and defeat as it relates to Buddhism. In a secular world, victory or defeat would be based on how well you're doing that day. Okay? And Buddhism is the arc of your life. Understand that, right? So he's saying, while there is no such conscious manipulation in the world of Buddhism, it's strictly causality. So, going back to page 835 to start the Gosho. I'm finally going to start. The Daishonin says, too, about Shijo Kingo in reply. Having glanced through your letter, I feel as relieved as if the day had finally broken off after a long night, or as if I had returned home after a long journey. Buddhism concerns itself with victory or defeat, while secular authority is based on the principle of reward and punishment. For this reason, a Buddha is looked up to as the hero of the world, while a king is called the one who rules at his will. India is called the land of the moon, and our country the land of the sun. Of the 80,000 countries in the land of Jambudvipa, which is the entire world, India is one of the largest, and Japan one of the smallest. When it comes to the auspiciousness of their names, however, India ranks second and Japan first. Buddhism began in the land of the moon. It will reside in the land of the sun. It is in the natural course of events that the moon appears in the west and it travels eastward while the sun proceeds from east to west. This truth is an unalterable fact that that a magnet attracts iron, or the ivory plant is nourished by the sound of thunder. Who could possibly deny it? So he's saying these are undeniable facts, and what he's qualifying, though, is what is he saying there? He's saying India, where Shakyamuni Buddha is from, ranks second. And that's where Buddhism originated. He says, but where it will reside and what ranks number one is Japan. So he's immediately qualifying a differentiation between the Buddhism of the harvest and the Buddhism of the sowing. He can't say that because of what we're going to read here. This shit would hit his face, big time. All right? But he's making it clear to Kingo. He's trying to train this again. Don't forget, Shijo Kingo is a warrior. He's a badass. He's a samurai. Okay? He's not just a casual kind of overstuffed imperial court person. He's an actual fighter. Okay? So, having glanced through your letter, I feel as relieved as if the day had finally broken after a long night, or as if I had returned home after a long journey. Buddhism primarily concerns itself with victory or defeat, while secular authority is based on the principle of reward and punishment. For this reason, a Buddha is looked up to as the hero of the world, while a king is called one who rules at his will. India is called the land of the moon, and our country the land of the sun. Of the 80,000 countries in the land of Jambudvipa, India is one of the largest, and Japan one of the smallest. When it comes to the auspiciousness of their names, however, India ranks second and Japan first. Land of the moon, land of the sun. Buddhism began in the land of the moon. It will reside in the land of the sun. It is in the natural course of events that the moon appears in the west and travels eastward, while the sun proceeds from east to west. This truth is as unalterable as the fact that a magnet attracts iron, or that the ivory plant is nourished by the sound of thunder. Who could possibly deny it? Let us examine how Buddhism came to Japan. Our country was first under the 7 reigns of the heavenly deities, and then under the 5 reigns of the earthly deities. Now, what does he mean by that? Our country was first under the 7 reigns of the heavenly deities. Okay, the heavenly deities. What's on the Gohonzon? What are the 2 of the bigger characters on the Gohonzon? The sun goddess and Hachiman. Those are both Japanese deities that were incorporated into Japanese Buddhism, preceding the Daishonin's teaching of the Buddhism of sowing. Okay, so he incorporates that tutelatory or whatever, those tutelatory gods into this process. But he says that according to Japanese history in 13th century, it began with the sun goddess giving rise to the imperial line. Okay, so that's why he says when he goes into his talking about historical Japan, he's talking about heavenly deities. He says, their reigns were followed by the age of human sovereigns, the first being Emperor Jimmu. So try and remember, Jimmu with a J was the first regular dude, was the first regular person emperor in their historical line, in their mythology of country origin back in 13th century. This is, again, prior to modern archaeology and so forth. The 30th, and then we jump, So you go from Jimmu to Kimei, who was the 30th emperor, who reigned for 32 years. Okay, in those days there was a state called Haicha, which was Korea, in the west of this country. It was under the suzerainty, whatever that means, of the Japanese emperor, and was governed by a king named Shimon. When the king made his annual tribute to Japan, so in other words, Japan had gone over and conquered part of Korea. As a result of that, they had to pay tribute to the emperor of Japan. Okay? When the king made his annual tribute to Japan on the 13th day of the cyclical sign Kanototori of the 10th month in the 13th year of Emperor Kumei's reign, the 30th emperor, the year of the cyclical sign Mizunonai Saru, he sent along with it a gilded bronze statue of Shakyamuni Buddha, a number of Buddhist scriptures, and also priests and nuns. Overjoyed, the emperor sought counsel from his ministers as to whether or not the nation should worship the Buddha of the Western countries. So again, they've conquered Korea, parts of Korea, a kingdom specifically in Korea. The Korean king is now given in tribute a statue of Buddha along with scriptures, sutras, those kinds of things, and even some monks and nuns to help teach people. All right? Emperor Kimei, the 30th emperor, is going like, wow, this is really cool. What should we do? Because don't forget, what have they already done? They've already assimilated the written word of China, right? They already write in kanji. That is officially how they start Japanese writing. It goes back to kanji. It goes to classical Chinese, right? So he's saying, wow, should we embrace this religious thinking of this place called China? So the great minister Ine of the Soga clan said, all of the countries of the West worship the Buddha. Why should Japan alone deny him? However, the chief minister Okoshi of the Mononobe clan, Nakatokumi no Kamako. These are two guys you got to, I won't pronounce their names well, but keep them in mind. And others advised the emperor, saying, the sovereign who rules over our nation has traditionally performed rites throughout the 4 seasons of the year in honor of the heaven and earth, the gods of the land and of the grain, and the numerous other deities. So one of his main people, Kumei's main people, when he's saying, hey, should we embrace this thing that they sent us from Korea, is saying, no. That's going against all the traditions of our country and your previous, the previous lineage of emperors. He says, custom in favor of the God of the West, our native deities will be angered. And I'm sorry, there's so much glare here, I'm having trouble seeing. And the great minister Soga alone, unable to decide, the emperor decreed that the great minister Soga alone should worship the Buddha by way of trial, and that no one else should do so. Soga was exceedingly glad to receive this decree. He took the image of Shakyamuni Buddha to his residence at a place called Ohoda and enshrined it there. To the surprise and outrage of the chief, thank you, that helped a lot. The outrage of the chief minister Mononobe. Okay, so the guy that had said, don't do this, the emperor says, well, let me just check it out with one of the key guys here. So there's 2 different families that are supporting the emperor. Okay, there's this Mononobe clan, and then there's also this Soga clan. Okay, so Soga guy, Soga patriarch, ends up being the first one to get to try out Buddhism on a trial basis. Do you understand? So Kimei says, I don't want everybody to embrace this. Let's see what happens to Soga. Okay? And Morinobu goes crazy, says this is absolutely correct. He says, at that time, a terrible epidemic broke out in Japan and killed the majority of the populace. Since it seemed as though the entire nation would perish, the chief minister Mononobe took this opportunity to declare to the emperor that the Buddha image should be destroyed. In other words, after they had received this from Korea, and he says to the Soga clan patriarch, you check it out, a plague hits, people start dying, and the guy that opposed it in the first place, saying it would upset the Japanese gods and so forth, says this is the reason, because Soga has embraced this image of Buddha, this philosophy from the West. The emperor Chief Minister Manobo took this opportunity to declare to the emperor that the Buddha image should be destroyed. The emperor concurred and commanded that Buddhism, a foreign religion, be discarded immediately. The chief minister Mononobe, acting on the emperor's behalf, confiscated the statue from Soga, heated it in a charcoal fire, and then smashed it with a hammer. He razed, in other words, tore down the place that Soga had created to practice, the Buddha image hall, where this object of devotion had been enshrined, and he flogged the priests and nuns that were there from Korea to teach. All right? Then, although the sky, he did this, all right? This is all to try and protect Japan because this plague is going on, right? However, this all occurred on a day when the sun was shining and no problems. He says, then, although the sky was cloudless, a gale blew and rain fell. The imperial palace was consumed in a fire that descended from heaven. You'll notice the point 9. It got hit by lightning. All three men, the emperor, Mononobe, the guy that said don't do it, and and Soga, all three of them fell ill in this epidemic, right? Each suffering excruciating agony as though he were being mangled or burned alive. Mononobe finally died while the emperor and Soga barely recovered. All right? From that time, 19 years passed without anyone taking faith in Buddhism. The 31st emperor, Bidatsu, which is a little bit confusing because the Yomei is recorded as the 31st, but let's just go with this text as that Daishonin is writing it. He says the 31st emperor, Bidatsu, was the second son of Kimei. He reigned for 14 years, aided by the ministers of the left and the right. One of them was the son of the chief minister Mononobe, and the other was the son of the great minister Soga, okay, who had also assumed his own name. So we've got two guys, the sons of both of those guys, that had been in conflict over the first image of a Buddha coming from Korea. Their sons now are pitted against one another. All right? So he says it was during this period, okay, when the sons of Soga, the son of Mononobe, were now assisting a new emperor, Bidatsu. Okay, it was during Emperor Bidatsu's reign that Prince Shotoku was born, the person who would ultimately establish Buddhism in Japan. He was the son of Emperor Yomei and a nephew of Bidatsu. One day, one day in the second month of the year, when the prince was 2 years old, he faced the east, extended his third finger, and chanted, "Hail Buddha!" Whereupon the Buddha's ashes materialized in his palm. This was the first time that anyone in Japan had invoked the name of Shakyamuni Buddha. All right, so Shotoku is the first one to have done that, and according to Japanese mythology, Shakyamuni's ashes appeared in his palm when he said, "Hail Buddha." All right, so when the prince was only 8 years old, he proclaimed, "Those who in the latter age worship the image of the sage of the West, Shakyamuni Buddha, will forestall calamities and benefit. They will forestall calamities and receive benefit. Those who despise it will invite disaster and have their lives shortened. Hearing this, the chief minister Mininobe no Mororia and the other one, the Sogas, he's saying again that hearing this, hearing Shotoku extemporaneously hail this Western religion which has been banned, okay, Mininobe says, oh, the Sogas have been practicing Buddhism when the emperor had said, we cannot do that anymore. Okay? So now the conflict of the fathers becomes active again. Do you understand? Is everybody with me as he's explaining this? He's saying, when hearing these, he says, the Sogas have been worshiping the god of the foreign land in violation of the imperial decree. Epidemics still raged incessantly, nearly wiping out the entire populace. Mononobe no Moriya reported this to the emperor. The emperor issued a decree which stated, Soga no Umako has been upholding Buddhism. Practice of this religion must cease. So once again, thanks to this clan of Mininobu, the emperor has again said, stop. You shouldn't be doing this. In compliance with the imperial command, Moriya, together with Natomi no Katsumi, marched upon the temple. There they destroyed the hall and pagoda, burning and destroyed the Buddhist image and set fire to the temple. They stripped the priests and nuns of their surplices and punished them with whips. After this incident, the emperor, as well as Moriya and Umaka, Umako, who is of the Soga clan, fell ill in an epidemic, just like what had happened before, right? He says, however, all three said that they felt that they were being burned alive or hacked to pieces. Moreover, boils called smallpox appeared all over their bodies. And basically, he's saying they got smallpox. And Umako, lamenting in anguish, said, okay, now he's the one that's still of the clan that understands Buddhism, right? His father was somebody that embraced and practiced it for 19 years before he was told by the emperor, stop. He says, now he's on his deathbed. The emperor is on his deathbed. Moriya is also on his deathbed. He says, still we should worship the three treasures. He says, even though we're all ill, we should be worshiping this religion from this foreign religion. Still, we should worship the three treasures. The emperor, because he's also facing calamitous bad health, says, the emperor commanded that Umako alone, just like his dad, okay, you pray to the three treasures, but only you can do so. I don't want to open and invite a big problem here. The emperor commanded that Umako alone should do so, and then no one else must follow suit. Overjoyed, Umako had a monastery built and there worshipped the three treasures. He began practicing Buddhism again. The emperor, Bidatsu, finally died on the 15th day of the 8th month in the year when Prince Shotoku was 14. Yomei, Prince Shotoku's dad, became the 32nd emperor and reigned for 2 years. He was a son of Kime also, and was the father of Shotoku. In the 4th month of the 2nd year of his reign, cyclical sign Hinotu Hitsuji, he fell ill in an epidemic. Thereupon, he expressed a desire to embrace the three treasures. Soga no Umako insisted that the imperial wish be honored, and finally brought a priest called Toyokuni into the imperial palace. Mononobu no Moriya and others, all these guys that have been opposing doing anything but our local Japanese gods and practice, they flew into a rage and in their fury swore at length to a curse upon the emperor, because the emperor's turned his back on their religious beliefs that they feel are at the core of their dynasty. At length, the emperor passed away. So now the emperor is gone. All right? But now who takes his place? Yomei. Prince Shotoku's dad is the one that took the lineage. In the 5th month of that year, Moriya and his clan entrenched themselves at his residence in the Shibuya and assembled a large number of troops there. Prince Shotoku and Umako advanced on the enemy's position and fought. So the guy that had maintained, let's do the 3 treasures and survived, and Prince Shotoku, who's now a young, he's old enough to lead as the son of the emperor. Okay, they go against the Mononobu clan, Moriya, right? All right, so the 5th, 6th, and 7th months of this conflict saw a total of 4 encounters. The Prince Shotoku, lost the first 3. Before the 4th battle took place, he offered a prayer and vowed that he would build a stupa for the preservation of the thus come one Shakyamuni's ashes, and also construct Shochino temple of the 4th heaven, temple of honoring the 4 heavenly kings, which are on the Gohonzon, right? On the 4 corners of the Gohonzon. Umako similarly pledged that he would erect a temple and enshrined an image of Shakyamuni Buddha that had been sent from Korea. So everybody's with me, right? All right. When the fighting began, Moriya shouted at Prince Shotoku, "It is not I, but the God of my ancestors," because that's what they believe in, right? Ancestral worship. "It is not I, but the God of my ancestors, the great deity enshrined at Futsu, who shoots this arrow." So Moriya shoots an arrow at Prince Shotoku. The arrow flew far and struck the prince's armor. The prince responded, calling out, "It is not I, but the 4 heavenly kings who shoot this arrow." Then he had a courtier named Tomi no Ichihi let fly the arrow. It traveled a great distance and struck Moriya in the chest. Hata no Kawakatsu rushed to the spot and severed Moriya's head from his body. That fight's done. This incident took place during the interval between Yomei's passing and Shishun's ascension to the throne. Shishun is the emperor between Shotoku's dad and himself. All right, because he's still a teenager, right? So somebody else from that clan. Okay, so now Moriya has been defeated. His clan's been defeated. After Shishun became the 33rd emperor, Prince Shotoku built Shitin-no-ji Temple, in which he placed the thus come one Shakyamuni's ashes, I guess, that he still had from when he was 8 years old. Umako erected a temple. Umako is the guy that it just said that we should still praise the 3 treasures, had pulled this out. Erected a temple called Gangoji, where he worshipped the image of Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of Teachings, which had been sent from Korea. Here, it must be pointed out in passing that the most appalling fraud in the world today is that of the statue of the thus come one Amida, allegedly the original object of devotion of Zenko-ji Temple. It was because of their enmity toward Shakyamuni Buddha that the 3 emperors, as well as the members of the Minobe clan, perished. Prince Shotoku had an image of Shakyamuni Buddha cast and enshrined it at Gangoji. This is the object of devotion now enshrined at Tachibana Dera Temple. It was the first statue of Shakyamuni Buddha ever to be made in Japan. And what his point is there is that, frankly speaking, people replaced these what was originally conveyed from Korea. They were statues of Shakyamuni as object of devotion, not Amida, not Buddhas outside of the realm of the teaching of Shakyamuni. So that's where he's going to go into now. He's saying, pardon me. Okay, in China, in the 7th year of Yongping, the 2nd emperor of the latter Han dynasty, Emperor Ming, dreamed of a man of gold. He thereupon dispatched 18 emissaries, including the scholars Si Yin and Wang Sun, to India to seek Buddhism. In the 10th year of Yongping cyclical sign, Hinotou, 2 sages of central India, Kashyapa, Matanga, and Chunfalan, were brought to China and accorded the highest esteem. Thousands of adherents of Confucianism and Taoism, schools that had up until then presided over all imperial rights, resented this and lodged a complaint with the emperor. Everybody understand we shifted gears now. We've gone from the story of the conflict of how Buddhism became the foremost belief set in Japan, and now we're going to how it became so in China as well. He's saying, thousands of adherents of Confucianism and Taoism, schools that had up until then presided, just like those ancestral beliefs in Japan, they're all PO'd. They're upset with the fact that the emperor is considering a different a religious belief. So the emperor decreed that an open debate be held on the 15th day of the first month of the 14th year of Yongping. Overjoyed, the Taoists erected an altar for 100 Chinese deities and as their objects of devotion. The 2 sages from India, those 2 guys that I just mentioned by name, had as their object of devotion the Buddha's ashes, a painting of Shakyamuni Buddha, and 5 sutras. As was customary in the rituals performed before the emperor, the Taoists brought in the scriptures of their school, as well as the 3 records and the 5 canons and the writings of the 2 sages and the 3 kings. That would be Confucius and what's the other guy that's Confucius's teacher? Lao Tzu. Okay, and the 3 kings piled some of them with firewood and set them ablaze. In similar rites in the past, these books had always withstood the flames, but this time they were reduced to ashes. So in other words, the Taoists came in and tried doing some magic, said, watch, this book won't burn. Well, guess what? It burned and it turned into ashes. Others, which were placed in water, had previously floated on the surface, but now sank to the bottom. So the Taoists called out for demons to appear, but to no avail. Unbearably humiliated, Xin, Fei, Shu Tsai, and others died of shame. When the 2 Indian sages preached Buddhism, the Buddha's ashes ascended to heaven, and there radiated a light so brilliant that it eclipsed the sun. The Buddha in the painting emitted a light from between his eyebrows. More than 600 Taoists, including Lu Shutong, finally capitulated and entered Buddhist priesthood. Within 30 days of this confrontation, they built 10 temples of Buddhism. Okay, so now we've finally gotten through all that dry history. I hope you guys have been able to hang and you followed me at least to this point. We had to read that in order to read the whole Gosha. Now he's going to get into what he really has to say. Thus, everybody's with me? Does everybody kind of understand what he said here? So far he said there are historical examples of people that support and oppose Buddhism. Those people that support Buddhism win. Those people who oppose Buddhism are defeated. They lose. So he says, pardon me, where am I? Thus Shakyamuni Buddha is perfectly just in administering reward and cause, and punishment. And President Cato will explain that better than me. As I mentioned earlier, because the 3 emperors and the 2 subjects became enemies of the thus come one Shakyamuni, they lost their lives and fell into the evil paths in their next existence. Now, time out. What has the Daishonin been saying in all of his years of teachings is the source of all the problems of Japan and his day? This very same thing. This very same thing. He says, you've all turned your back on Shakyamuni Buddha. You're all doing Nimbutsu. You're all doing True Word. You're all either praising Amida or Mahavajrana. You're not praising the correct Buddha. And now we're in the 5th 500-year period. That's not even the right Buddha. He's referring to, he's going to talk about himself in a minute here. So he says, thus Shakyamuni Buddha. So as I mentioned earlier, because the 3 emperors and the 2 subjects became enemies of the thus come one Shakyamuni, they lost their lives and fell into the evil paths in their next existence. Our own age is not unlike theirs. The Taoists, Chu and Fei of China, and Moriya of Japan, by relying on the major and minor deities of their respective countries, became enemies of Shakyamuni Buddha when the Buddha's teachings arrived. All right? But since these gods themselves follow the Buddha, remember what I told you when we talked? There is nothing greater than the Buddha. There's no influence in the universe greater than the Buddha. So he's saying, these are gods and so forth, but they're not greater than Buddhas. Okay? So he says, since these gods themselves follow the Buddha, those practitioners were all brought to ruin, because again, they opposed what the gods support. These present times are exactly like theirs. The image I mentioned earlier that came from Korea is that of Shakyamuni Buddha. Nevertheless, priests of the other schools have deceived the Japanese people by calling it Amida Buddha. In other words, I won't go into that whole story, but you know, he threw the three-pronged thing, and then they found the statue, and it's all BS. That's how the Nimbutsu pulled it off. That's Honen. Honen is the one that made up all that crap. There is a difference between the Taoists and Moriya on the one hand, and our contemporary priests and the other, in that the former preferred gods to a Buddha, while the latter replaced one Buddha with another. Everybody's with me? You understand what he just said? Mm-hmm. Okay. Moriya didn't replace one Buddha with another. Do you understand? All right. However, they are alike in that they have all abandoned Shakyamuni Buddha. There is no doubt, therefore, that our country will be ruined. This is a teaching that has never been revealed. Keep it strictly to yourself. Do you understand what he's saying to Shijo Kingo there? He's saying, I'm telling you this because I know you have the faith to accept and understand it. Yeah. I believe you actually are the person that will help carry forward this teaching that I'm leaving and entrusting to you. So he says, keep it strictly to yourself, because this kind of information isn't for everybody. They won't understand. They'll create slander, and they might even attack or try to kill you. So protect yourself, but be aware, this is my teaching, this is the truth. And as a result of him writing this letter to Shijo Kingo, we get to read it. Okay? It's preserved for us to understand. So he says, this is very strict. If there are any, what's that mean?
No exclusion.
No exclusion. If there are any among my followers who are weak in faith and go against what I, Nichiren, say, they will meet the same fate as did the Soga family. Wow, the Soga family was the one that upheld the Lotus Suit. You know, they're the ones that said we should at least give what happened to the Soga family. I thought they were cool. Oh, I will tell you the reason, he says. It was due to the efforts of father and son, Soga no Iname and Umako, that Buddhism came to be established in Japan. Yes, it's because of them that it became established in Japan. They could have held the same position as Brahma and Shakra at the time of the Thus Come One Shakyamuni's appearance in this world. But because they had brought Maninobe no Okoshi and his son Moriya to ruin, they became the only influential clan in the country. All right? Because they supported Buddhism and opposed Moriya, they won. But they rose in rank and controlled the nation, and their family enjoyed high prosperity. But Umako grew so arrogant that he had Prince Shishun assassinated and many princes killed. Moreover, his grandson Iruka had his retainers put 23 of Prince Shotoku's children to death. Thereupon, Empress Kogyaku, following the advice of Nakatomi no Makoto, had a statue cast of Shakyamuni Buddha and prayed to it fervently. As a result, Iruka, his father, and the entire Soga clan family all perished at once. So in other words, they embraced Buddhism, but because they didn't understand that it was Buddhism that was the source of their fortune, they became arrogant. And in the process of that arrogance, were ultimately created causes that were in conflict with the correct teaching of Buddhism, and without meaning to, abandon their faith. Okay? So he's saying, draw your own conclusions from what I said above. Those among my followers who fail to carry through their faith to the end will incur punishment even more severe. So when you hear me sound so radical all the time, and maybe I'm overstating things or I'm a fanatic, I am that way because of the way the Gosho was written, and this isn't the only place where he says something like this. So understand that this is the teaching of the Buddhism of the sowing. It is very strict. It is very, very strict. So he says, draw your own conclusions from what I say above. Those among my followers who fail to carry through their faith to the end will incur punishment even more severe. Even so, they should not harbor a grudge against me. In other words, it's not up to me. It's up to you. It's your faith that carries you, not anything about me being the Buddha bestowing something upon you. That's what he's trying to say here. Even so, they should not harbor a grudge against me. Remember what fate Shobo, no Tobo, and others met. In other words, by the way, Samibo, Shobo, there are several people now that have abandoned their faith and they have not met with timely ends. He says, be extremely cautious, and for the time being, never submit yourself to writing a pledge, whatever it may concern. So in other words, again, remember, Lord Emma has asked him to write a pledge saying, I will abandon my faith. No matter how furious a fire may rage, this is cool, it burns out after a while. No matter what difficulties we face, they do come to an end. This is about victory and defeat, not about comfort and discomfort. This is not about difficulty or the absence of difficulty. It's about winning or losing. Okay? So he's saying difficulty doesn't mean loss. Your actions will determine what is loss or what is gain. Because that's the crucial moment. That's the crucial moment. Will you abandon or will you become subject to arrogance and complacency? Okay? Will you live your life the way I've told you to live it? Or you'll be happy with what you are, what you got, and not be able to actually teach others what I've tried to teach you. And that's what he's really going to get down to here, he says. Be extremely careful, and for the time being, never submit yourself to a written pledge, whatever it may concern. No matter how furious a fire may rage, it burns out after a while. On the other hand, water may appear to move slowly, but its flow does not easily vanish. Since you are hot-tempered and behave like a blazing fire. So again, Shijo Kingo is not known as some mellow, priesty kind of dude. He is a warrior. All right? He is a samurai. All right? He says, since you have a hot temper and behave like a blazing fire, you will certainly be deceived by others. If your Lord coaxes you with soft words, I am sure you will be won over, just as a fire is extinguished by water. Untempered iron quickly melts in a blaze, like ice put in hot water. But a sword, even when exposed to a great fire, withstands the heat for a while because it has been well forged. In admonishing you this way, I am trying to forge your faith. And so he's saying, I'm not trying to be overtly strict just to be overtly strict. I'm trying to teach you how to be the Buddha in your present form and to withstand obstacles so that you can surmount them and achieve victory, win or lose. You can win. He says, Buddhism is reason. Reason will win over your Lord. No matter how dearly you may love your wife and wish never to depart from her, you will die. It will not, and it will be to no avail for you to lament the fact that you don't want anything to ever happen to your wife. You won't be able to stop that. She's going to die. He's saying, no matter how dearly you may cherish your estate, when you die, it will only fall into the hands of others. You have been prosperous enough for all these years. You must not give your estate a second thought, because that's not what's going to determine whether or not you attain Buddhahood in your present form. You must not give your estate a second thought. As I have said before, be millions of times more careful than ever. Since childhood, I, Nichiren, have never prayed for the secular things in this life, but have single-mindedly sought to become a Buddha. Of late, however, I have been ceasingly praying for your sake to the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha, and the Lord of the Sun. For I am convinced that you are a person who can inherit the Buddha of the, thank you, Marcina, who can inherit the soul of the Lotus Sutra. Be extremely careful not to come into conflict with others. Do not meet anyone at any place other than your own home. None of the night watchmen are sufficiently dependable, but considering that they had their residences confiscated because of their faith in the Lotus Sutra, because they were my disciples and they weren't, your level of samurai, they all already got nailed. Okay, so he says they will exercise. He says maintain friendly relations with them. They will exercise extra caution on their nightly rounds and provide you with protection. Even should the people on your side make a slight error, pretend not to see or hear it. Even if your Lord should ask to hear the teachings of Buddhism, do not heedlessly rejoice and rush off to see him. Answer mildly that you are not sure that you can comply, and that you will consult with some of my disciples. If you betray great sorrow in your countenance, if you betray great joy in your countenance and allow others to draw you in by his desire to hear the teachings, you will bring everything to ruin as surely as fire consumes whatever will burn or as rain falls from heaven. If the opportunity arises, submit to your Lord the petition I have written on your behalf, since it contains materials that are of a great importance. It will certainly create a stir. Respectfully, Nichiren. And that petition is actually the letter of petition from Yorimoto, which precedes this Gosho. And it's a great Gosho because what the Daishonin actually does is in Shijo Kingo's behalf, he takes on the whole issue of what Semibo had said and how it was BS and that didn't happen. And then he refutes everything that Lord Emma thinks about Buddhism being a mistaken view. Unfortunately, Lord Emma never got to hear this very wonderful Gosho that the Daishonin wrote for Shijo Kingo. So do I have time to start going into? No. All right, so next week we will start on chapter 5, I think it is, or is it 6? Which is the 5, right? 5. So we will start with the Hero of the World on page 69 of the Teachings for Victory by Daisaku Ikeda next Wednesday. Thank you so much, and I hope I see Christine. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.